Hello, everyone. Tonight, we are walking across the windswept edge of the world. The air is thin. Your breath floats in front of you like fog trapped in glass. Beneath your feet, the snow crackles, and ahead, silhouetted against the slow-burning sky, lumbers a herd of mammoths, huge, shaggy, heavy with memory. You're here to follow them, not for long, just for one night, one slow, glacial night. But you probably won't survive. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. The sun doesn't set here like it does elsewhere. It withdraws. It flattens into the horizon and bleeds sideways across the snow. You're walking behind them, the herd. 12 mammoths in all, though you keep losing count. They're enormous, but the falling dark flattens their forms. Every so often, one lifts its trunk and snorts, sending a puff of steam into the air. The oldest among them limps her back, a gentle arch of scarred fur and sagging hide. Your boots sink with each step. The snow here is layered in ancient sheets, some of it 1,000 years old, some of it no more than a breath. You smell damp wool and something like old mushrooms. Somewhere behind you, the rest of your group has stopped, their voices hushed, but you keep walking. The mammoths have slowed. The land ahead of them is changing. They're tucked at the base of a gentle slope. A cluster of thin black trees leans into the wind. They're not impressive. No taller than a house, most of them broken at the middle. But the mammoths turn toward them like pilgrims spotting a temple. You feel it before you hear it. The rumble of footsteps moving in a broad curve, not toward the trees, around them. One by one, the mammoths begin to spiral. Each animal starts to move in a wide, slow orbit, circling the trees like planets around an unseen sun. Their heads are low, their trunks trail the ground, occasionally brushing the frost. You pause. You're no mammoth, but you know ritual when you see it. There's a strange peace in the rhythm, a steady crunch, a rhythmic huff, like monks pacing in prayer. The baby. There's always one tries to imitate the spiral, but its steps are wobbly and out of sync. It breaks formation once or twice. The others don't correct it, instead they make space for its clumsy orbit. You crouch near a rock, one that might actually be a very old bone, and watch. The wind dips for a moment, just enough for silence to fall. The herd continues their spiral, carving shallow trails in the snow, faint gray loops that catch the moonlight. And then, without signal or sound, they stop. Each mammoth turns inward, facing the trees. The space between them forms a ring with no center. No one sleeps yet, not really. Their eyes remain open, but their limbs are still. And the quiet is full. Now here's your weird fact of the night. There are octopuses that build stone fences. They gather pebbles and form circular walls around their dens. The urge to surround to define a safe zone, it goes deeper than you think. One of the mammoths exhales and it sounds like an old furnace groaning awake. There's something sacred about this. You can feel it in the way the snow falls without urgency, in the way the trees don't move even though the wind hasn't stopped. This moment right here has been happening for thousands of years, night after night, circle after circle. Historians still debate whether these nightly spirals were instinctual or learned. Some argue that mammoths inherited the behavior from earlier species, passed down in the same part of the brain that stores migration paths. Others believe it was taught the way elephants today pass on traditions, morning spots, favorite rivers, places to sleep, standing up. You press your hand into the snow. Cold, soft. Briefly, you imagine stepping into the circle, just to see. But something about it warns you off. One of the mammoths shifts its weight, and the entire herd seems to respond in micro-movements. A sway of hips, a twitch of an ear. You wonder what you look like to them, something soft-skinned and small and very, very awake. Suddenly, a gust hits you and your coat flaps hard enough to startle you. You pull your hood tighter. When you look up, The stars have come out not blinking, not twinkling, just there, cold, eternal patient. The limping matriarch is the last to still. Her circle is the widest. Emiyao's like it, her path etched deepest into the snow. She closes her eyes. She doesn't lie down. None of them do. You know this part. Mammoths, like elephants, slept standing up. Most of the time, anyway. Lying down was too risky, too exposed, especially in deep snow. They needed a lookout even in dreams. They are the lookout. And now, here's your academic curveball. Some paleontologists argue that mammoths may have had an innate sense of magnetic fields. Not just for migration, but for orientation during rest. A built-in compass. If that's true, then these circles aren't just convenient, they're aligned with what no one knows. You breathe out. The cold takes it instantly. Your fingers are numb, but you stay. One of the mammoths makes a low, resonant sound, almost like thunder in reverse. The others respond, not with noise, but with a ripple of breath and motion. The circle remains. The center stays empty. You check the time. It's late or early. Either way, the night's not over. You sit down on your haunches just outside the ring and wait. You're not sure what for, but something tells you this is only the beginning. The snow beneath your boots isn't just snow anymore. Now that you've seen the spiral, you start noticing things you didn't before. The way the ground seems smoothed into curved lines. The faint grooves left behind where mammoth feet dragged just a little too long, where heavy weight wore down the crust. These aren't paths, they're echoes. You crouch low and run your glove along one of the arcs. The trench is no deeper than your knuckle, but it stretches all the way around the tree at the center. Not quite a circle, slightly oval. Not perfect geometry, but practiced. And it's not just one. Now your eyes have adjusted, you start seeing them everywhere. Shallow spirals in every direction. Most have already half filled with fresh snow, but the shapes remain faint and stubborn. There's a language here. You're just illiterate. The mammoths, meanwhile, have gone completely still. Not asleep, but stilled. You've never seen such a large creature become such a quiet one. Their breath rises in lazy plumes, barely disturbed by the breeze. One sways gently. Another shifts a foot slow as glacier melt. There's something about these rings, like tree rings in reverse. Instead of marking years inwards, they etch memory outward over and over again. Somewhere in your head, the voice of a long-dead paleontologist chirps, "Behavior leaves fewer fossils than bones." True, but not always. The spirals themselves are a fossil, or will be. A behavior imprinted on the land. There are known mammoth sites in Siberia and Alaska, where paleontologists have uncovered ground patterns like this. Shallow, semi-permanent rings around ancient tree stumps. They match up with tusk-wear patterns on bark, too. Some trees got brushed nightly until their bark polished off completely. And no, it wasn't feeding. These weren't food trees. The mammoths weren't foraging. They were orbiting. The theory. The spirals are what you're seeing now, ritualized behavior. But that word ritual makes academics itchy. It sounds religious. It sounds human. So instead, they say repetitive locomotor behavior with environmental stimulus, which is just a complicated way of saying they walked in circles because it felt right. You stand again and look at the tree at the center of the nearest spiral. It's black-barked, crooked, and utterly ordinary. Nothing mystical, nothing strange. And yet mammoths have chosen this one again and again. You know what's stranger? There are circles in places where there aren't trees anymore. You step across to one. The snow hides it well, but it's still there, a faint outline, a track in a perfect loop. You run your fingers over the center. Just snow, no roots, no stump. So where did the tree go? Maybe it fell. Maybe it rotted. Or maybe here's a weird twist, there never was a tree. The mammoths might have walked in spirals anyway, centering nothing at all. Historians still debate whether the spiral was about protection or programming. Some argue it was instinct passed on like a recipe you don't question. Others think it was functional circle to compress the snow, reduce wind exposure, make it easier to sleep. But even that doesn't explain the precision or the consistency across continents. You walk another loop, the snow here feels firmer, compressed, slightly sunken, enough for traction. Your stomach grumbles. Mammoths ate up to 400 pounds of vegetation a day, and here you are hoping the protein bar in your pack hasn't frozen solid. You take it out and gnaw. As you chew, you keep walking the edge of the spiral. It feels meditative, like tracing your finger around a vinyl record. There's something primal about walking in circles before sleep. Dogs do it. Elephants do it. Even humans don't pretend you haven't flopped into bed and rotated around to find the right position like a confused caterpillar. Circles feel safe. They have no corners, no edges, no place to get trapped. You pass one of the calves. It blinks at you, slow, unbothered. Then it resumes its soft sway trunk, hanging like a hammock in the wind. And suddenly, you remember something odd from a documentary that desert nomads in ancient North Africa sometimes made shallow circles around their tents each night before sleeping. The belief that spirits and jackals were confused by loops. They couldn't cross something without a beginning or end. The mammoths might have agreed. You kneel and press both palms to the ground. For a second, you swear it hums. Not sound, just vibration, like memory under tension. Odd fact break. Did you know some 1970s researchers thought woolly mammoths might have had built-in antifreeze proteins in their blood similar to Arctic fish? The idea didn't last, but it sparked some really dramatic science fiction. Mammoth blood glowing in the ice like radioactive syrup. Alas, no such luck. But they did have compact red blood cells that could function in extreme cold. You don't. Lucky you brought gloves. You make a full circle and stop at the beginning. Except it doesn't feel like a beginning. Just a smooth transition back to where you were. The wind rises. You pull your coat tighter and scan the tree line. And then you see it. In the shadows past the furthest mammoth lies another ring. But this one looks deeper, older, more sunken. No mammoths stand inside it now, just silence. You walk toward it slowly. Your boots crunch, muffled by snow, and the cold sinks into your ankles like it's trying to borrow your bones. This spiral is wide, broader than the others, and at its center lies a tree that's half-dead bark, missing branches, crooked like a gnarled hand. You stop, because something's different here. The snow within the spiral is untouched. No fresh prints, no breath steam, no sound. And yet the ring looks fresh, as if someone or something walked it just hours ago. You crouch low. The tracks are clear, mammoth-sized, deep, circular. But there's no herd nearby, not even the faintest sign. It's like the memory of a spiral walked itself into the ground and left before dawn. You don't step into that spiral. Not yet. There's a hesitation that clings to your muscles like wet fabric. You just stand there breathing, letting your eyes trace the circle again and again as if they're trying to find the mistake. But it's perfect, too perfect. Deep enough to have weight, shallow enough to have just formed. The snow within it is smooth, undisturbed. Whatever walked it left no exit. So of course you step in. Your foot sinks an inch. The snow is colder here, not colder in temperature, colder in sensation. As if memory itself had lowered the thermostat. You walk the inner edge. Slowly, cautiously, and something strange happens. You start to remember things that aren't yours. A great weight on your shoulders, fur heavy with frost, the wind curling beneath long ears, the way your breath steams sideways in the dark. The sensation of walking this same circle last night and the night before that, and the decade before that. It's like déjà vu with hooves. You pause and look around again. Still no herd nearby. You are utterly alone. Well, almost. There are footprints, human ones, faint, old, coming from the direction of the tree line and stopping right where you're standing now. You glance over your shoulder, nothing but snow and distance. The prints don't lead out. You feel your heart do that fun little double skip thing. You step out of the spiral, quickly crunching into the deeper snow. Your own trail looks fresh, modern. The boot treads crisp, confident. You follow it back toward the herd. And here's a thing you didn't know. Memory doesn't have to belong to a brain. It can live in the body, in muscle, in gait. The same way your legs remember stairs even when the lights are out. Or how you reach for your keys before realizing you're already holding them. Mammoths walked circles around trees not because they thought it was safe, but because their bodies remembered it was. A kind of muscle-encoded prophecy. And that's what you're witnessing now. These massive animals, descendants of animals that walked with Neanderthals, moving according to knowledge stored deeper than thought. You reach the edge of the main herd again. The matriarch watches you, doesn't move, doesn't blink. But you feel her gaze press into your coat like weather. Her spiral is deeper now. The snow compressed so hard it glints like polished bone. You watch her take a slow breath, then another, and then, incredibly, she moves. One more circle, not as wide, not as graceful, but she does it anyway, completing it, like punctuation, and then she finally rests. Still standing, but different. Settled. You swear the wind quiets for her. Now, here's a real grounded fact. Modern elephants in Africa sometimes return to the same trees nightly to sleep even over the course of years. Trees with particular shapes, certain sheltering angles. Some researchers think it's about shade or wind protection. Others think it's cultural behavior taught from matriarch to calf. So when you look at these mammoths and see them spiraling around trees, it's not myth, it's inheritance. A learned behavior passed on without words. A bedtime story told by footprints. You shuffle around the herd again, now more aware of each circle's subtle difference. One has a double loop, maybe two mammoths walked it together. Another is slightly off-center. One tree has no ring at all, and a half-buried jawbone sits where a trunk might have brushed bark. And you start to wonder, were these spirals a kind of map? Not just comfort, but coordination. Remember how birds align in flight? How bees dance directions? Maybe this was mammoth choreography. A nightly GPS ping to the herd. This is the safe spot. This is where we stay. Historians still debate whether these circular behaviors were individual or social. Was it one mammoth's preference passed down over time, or a whole herd's consensus? The fossil record doesn't show thought bubbles, just overlapping grooves in worn-down earth. You pass the calf again. It's pressed close to one of the younger females, trunk looped around her back leg like a child grabbing a parent's hand. It looks like a hug or an anchor. Weird side fact. There's a species of moth that lays its eggs only on the exact same species of tree. Its grandmother used tracked by smell across entire forests. Family traditions in insects. Who knew? A gust of wind kicks snow into your face. You squint and pull your scarf higher. The temperature's dropping, you feel it in your teeth. And then you spot something that makes you pause. Another spiral, but fresh, and in motion. One mammoth, younger than the rest, is walking alone around a distant tree. Slowly, methodically, wide orbit. No others near it. It hasn't joined the herd tonight. Why? You walk closer, careful not to make sudden noise. Your footsteps are nothing compared to the giants, but still you tread gently. The spiral widens with every pass. The mammoth's breath comes faster than the others. Not panicked, but alert. Watching, listening. And you realize this isn't rest. This is memory rehearsal. The mammoth's walking something it was shown or taught, repeating it, committing it to body. It may not sleep tonight, just walk and walk until the circle feels right. And then maybe tomorrow it'll join the others, maybe not. But here's the catch: once it walks that circle, it never really forgets it. The snow might melt, the winds might scrape it away. But next winter or the next, something will pull it back here. To this tree, this spiral, this memory. And just like that, you're watching behavior that's older than your species, older than cities, older than songs. The mammoth stops, pauses, turns inward, breath fogging the space like a signal, and the snow falls quietly enough to let history happen. The herd has settled now, not in sleep, not yet, but in presence. There's a stillness that hums through them like static through fur. The snow continues to fall slow and indecisive, coating your shoulders, your boots, the tips of your lashes. You haven't moved in several minutes. The cold has crept in beneath your coat, nested in your knees. Still, you stay. The trees creak gently, not from age, from weight, or maybe from something watching. You step closer to the center of the largest ring. There's a strange comfort in proximity, like curling up near someone else's fireplace. You're not inside their safety, not really, but you're close enough to pretend. The trees bent and blackened by wind and time don't look like guardians. They look like survivors. Their bark is split in places, rubbed raw from years of brushing tusks. You run your gloved hand across one, feeling grooves worn smooth. Not from claws, from affection or habit. Same thing sometimes. You circle one of them, slowly mirroring the mammoths. The ground here is pressed flat, slick beneath the snow. No grass, no roots, just memory packed into the soil, like mammoth fingerprints. And it hits you, they didn't just sleep near trees because of convenience. They chose them, again and again, certain trees, certain shapes. Something about those crooked trunks in the dark made sense, like a lighthouse but colder. And the question sneaks in. What did the trees mean? Because if you're thinking about meaning, you're not alone. Researchers have suggested mammoths may have treated some trees as anchor points in the landscape, natural totems around which to orient their behavior. Others go further, suggesting the trees themselves were partners. Places where communication occurred. Trunk to bark, breath to branch. Yes, I know. That sounds dramatic. But you try watching a 6-ton animal sway like a ghost around a dying pine and not think there's something deeper going on. Historians still debate whether this behavior was spiritual or practical. The safe bet says it was about shelter orientation and social cohesion. But that doesn't explain why even lone mammoths circled trees. It doesn't explain the silence, the pause, the facing inward. You glance up. The moon has risen round and judgmental. It casts pale shadows that stretch in long arcs across the snow. The trees flicker slightly. The mammoths don't move. You walk farther from the center of the herd, now skirting the edge. The trees grow denser here, and the rings more chaotic. Some are barely visible, others are overrun with snowdrifts. One tree split completely at the middle has no ring at all. A broken line. You stop. Because on its other side, deep beneath the snow, you see another spiral. This one collapsed, half erased, as if someone started it and didn't finish. The mammoths avoided this one. Even the snow feels heavier here, as if weighed down by memory. And here's your odd fact of the night. There's a species of tree in Japan that reacts to touch by slowly closing its leaves even in winter. It doesn't do it for protection. It's not a defense mechanism. It just does. A leftover behavior. A biological shrug. That's how this ring feels, like a gesture left unfinished. A habit without a reason. You crouch near it, brush away some snow. Beneath you find something you didn't expect, bark scored deep. Not from tusks, from claws. Four-pronged. Sharp. You swallow. You turn slowly and scan the tree line. The mammoths haven't moved. But they're watching now. You can feel it. And suddenly you understand something you hadn't before. The circle isn't just for sleep. It's for defense. The spiral isn't about inward peace. It's about outward awareness. A living radar. A rotating watchtower made of fur and weight. That explains why they always face inward after walking the ring. The center is known. Safe. What matters is the outside. You look again at this broken ring. The tree at its center looks wrong, like it grew crooked on purpose, or maybe was bent that way. The scratch marks run down its base like tally marks. Whatever tried to attack this herd didn't succeed, but it tried once. And this spiral, this broken one, it's not a failure, it's a warning. You back away slowly, not because something is there, but because something was. And now the rings have context. Now the spirals aren't mysterious, they're tactical. Each night the herd reasserts its awareness of space. Each circle says, we are here. We remember. We see. Humans do the same thing, you know. Look at any ancient settlement. Rings of stones, circles of tents, fires arranged in loops. We're not so different. We've always been scared of the dark. You hear a rumble behind you, low, steady. One of the mammoths has resumed walking. Not around the center, around the herd. A sentry shift. You turn back to the center and catch the matriarch's eye again. This time you nod. She doesn't nod back, but she doesn't have to. And here's a callback for you. Remember the solo mammoth from earlier? It's joined the herd now, standing just inside the outermost ring. It hasn't walked tonight. It's watching, learning. You smile because the lesson is being passed. Through movement, through snow, through spirals. You sit for a moment, the tree at your back, the rings around you like ripples in time. And for the first time since arriving, you close your eyes. You don't fall asleep, of course. You're not a mammoth. But you rest, just long enough to feel your heartbeat slow to match theirs. When you open your eyes again, the wind has calmed, the trees creak less, the night has entered its stillest hour. The circle holds. There's a sound you can't quite place, soft, steady like padded drums on deep snow. It's not coming from the herd. No, the mammoths are still. The matriarch hasn't shifted since her final spiral. You tilt your head, listening harder. There it is again. It's coming from beyond the circle. You rise slowly, the snow whispering against your coat. Every sound is sharper now. You hear your own breath, the crunch of your boots, the wind threading through the trees like a careful thief. And you hear the wolves, low rhythmic footfalls evenly spaced, not rushing, not stalking, pacing. Somewhere out there, just past the trees, wolves are circling too. But they do not enter. You squint into the dark eyes, adjusting to the lunar glow. Shadows move. Shapes resolve. A handful of them. 6, maybe 8. Their eyes reflect moonlight like shards of glass. Yellow, unblinking. The wolves are walking in their own ring. A wide one. Not close enough to challenge. Not far enough to ignore. It's a standoff shaped like a ballet. You step quietly toward the edge of the mammoth ring, stopping just before the invisible boundary. It's not a fence, not a wall, but you feel it. The air seems denser here, like it's been walked into form. And the wolves don't cross. Not a single paw breaches that line. Here's a historical detail for your trouble in Ice Age ecosystems. Wolves were a real threat to juvenile mammoths. Packs would test the edges of herds, searching for weakness. Not to overwhelm, they weren't stupid, just to harass, to wait for hesitation. But tonight, the wolves are patient, observing, almost respectful. You watch them move. They aren't quite circling the mammoths, but orbiting them from a distance, matching their patterns, as if drawn in by gravity. Maybe they're waiting for exhaustion. Maybe they're just enjoying the show. There's something eerie about it, a symmetry you didn't expect. 2 circles. One of prey, one of predator, neither breaking the rhythm. The calf lets out a soft noise like a trumpet underwater. It's not distress, it's acknowledgement. The herd doesn't react. They already know. Because this happens every night. The wolves show up. They walk their line. They listen. They watch. The mammoths don't flinch. They stand where the snow has been stamped flat by countless generations of slow, deliberate feet. The circle is not just a shape, it's a message. We're ready. We remember. Don't try it. You take a slow breath and watch the wolves a little longer. One yawns, big, exaggerated, as if to say, "We could, but not tonight." Another sniffs the air and licks its lips. They're not leaving, but they're not coming closer either. And here's a weird fact wolves can count, not like you, but well enough to notice if a pack member is missing or if an enemy group is larger than expected. They understand ratios, risk, patterns, which might explain the hesitation. The mammoths outnumber them tonight, or at least outweight them. You crouch low behind a snow-covered log and keep watching. The wolves move in a loose loop, occasionally doubling back. None lie down, none sit. They stay upright awake, just like the herd. It strikes you then that the wolves are also following a kind of ritual, one that matches the mammoths step for step. Two species locked in an ancient negotiation, a game of patience, no violence, just presence. You shift slightly, and your knee sinks into a patch of snow. It's soft here, looser than expected. You dig absently, revealing a dark patch underneath an old track, wider than a wolf's, much wider. You scrape more snow away. It's a paw print, yes, but it's huge. At least twice the size of the wolves currently circling. Older, too, crusted in ice, preserved by luck or habit. You can make out claws, a deep heel pad, heavy, and beside it a second one, a matching pair. And then, nothing. No trail, no stride, just those two prints leading nowhere. You look up again slowly. The wolves are still there, still watching. But now you wonder, are they the ones watching? Or are you all being watched? Historians still debate what else roamed the mammoth steppe. Smilodons, sure. Cave lions, dire wolves. But fossil records show that larger, stranger predators once moved through these snowy plains, some whose behavior we've only guessed at. You glance back to the herd. The matriarch's eye is open, and she's not looking at you. She's looking past you, into the trees. You don't turn right away. You listen. The forest beyond the wolves has gone very still. Even the wind seems to have leaned back in its chair. And then one of the wolves whines, a long, low sound. Not fear, not warning, something older. One by one they begin to back away. Not run, not scatter, just retreat. Slowly, with precision, as if they too recognize the feeling of something larger approaching. You don't see anything, but the mammoths tighten subtly, trunks lowering toward the snow. The baby tucks itself behind its mother's legs. The circle contracts barely but enough. Whatever is out there, they're ready for it. And you, well, you're standing very still and very cold in the middle of an ancient dance that predates language war or poetry. So you do what any smart human would. You sit down, you stay quiet, and you wait. You try to slow your breathing. Not out of fear, well, maybe a little, but because the air is so still now that each exhale feels like a siren. You're not sure what's watching from the tree line. You're not even sure if it's there exactly. But every living thing in this clearing, every trunk, every tail, every quiet heartbeat is reacting to something unseen. And that includes you. The wolves are gone now, their prints already being swallowed by the snow. But they didn't run, they yielded. As if out of respect, or memory, you brush snow off your legs and stand carefully. One wrong crunch and you might break whatever ancient understanding is being honored here. The mammoths remain frozen in their stances, backs to the trees, faces to the center. No sound, no flinch. It's like they've turned to statues in the instant before some enormous truth walks out of the dark. But nothing comes. Not yet. Instead, your eyes drift again to the tree at the center of the oldest spiral. The one the matriarch chose. It looks brittle dry. You wonder how long it's been there, decades, centuries. And then you see them, ivory white, just beneath the snow, tusk tips. You kneel and start clearing carefully. The snow gives way too easily, like it wants this uncovered. Beneath, angled gently outward, lie two curved tusks, long, smoothed with age. Their tips still shine like old piano keys. A skull is there too, half buried, shattered on one side. The sockets wide and empty, filled with powdery snow. You are kneeling next to the grave of a mammoth. And not just any mammoth, one of this herd. You feel it, in your bones, in your breath. The others must know too. They've been circling their dead. Night after night, over and over, a ring of memory around what once was. Here's your fact of the hour: modern elephants are known to mourn their dead. They return to the bones of lost family members, stroke them with their trunks, rest beside them, sometimes for days. Even years later, they'll pause at the same spot as if acknowledging the weight of what's missing. Mammoths, it seems, did the same. You lean back on your heels and look at the herd. A young male shifts slightly. He's facing toward the grave now. The matriarch hasn't moved, but you feel the focus shift. Everyone knows where you are, what you found. And they don't stop you. Maybe they're letting you see. Maybe they want you to. You brush more snow away, exposing part of the jaw. The teeth are still in place, broad, flat, perfect for grinding grass. You count the wear lines. This mammoth was old, very old. Maybe the matriarch's sister. Maybe her mate. Or maybe the last to complete a spiral alone. Odd fact for the mood. Some Viking burial rituals involved walking a ring around the grave. 3 times clockwise. Once counter. It was said to confuse the spirits or guide them. Depends on which sagas you trust. You stand again, brushing your gloves off against your thighs. The snow resumes its steady descent. Slow flakes, soft and harmless. They dust the tusks again, like time trying to reassert itself. But now you've seen it. This isn't just a sleeping site. It's a cemetery. The circles are not just behavior, they're remembrance. The mammoths return here to honor the past. Not metaphorically, physically. They walk the spiral to mark that someone was here and is no longer. You glance at the matriarch again. Her eye is closed now. Not in sleep, rest, trust. And that's when you realize something strange. This spiral, the one surrounding the buried tusks, is different. It's not circular. It's a double spiral. A figure 8. Or almost. The grooves cross slightly just once and then resume their loops. You whisper aloud before you can stop yourself. A dance. The sound of your own voice surprises you. It feels foreign. You haven't spoken in hours. But the word fits. A final dance around the one who fell. A signal to the others. A commitment. You wonder how long ago this mammoth died. There are no bones scattered, no signs of scavenging, just tusks, skull, stillness. The herd has preserved it. Not by digging, not by hiding, but by returning. Every night, every snow, every memory. Historians still debate whether these behaviors indicate true mourning or just instinctual habit. Some say elephants grieve. Others argue it's anthropomorphism. But honestly, if it looks like grief, smells like grief, and walks a spiral around a grave for 10 winters straight, it's grief. You take a step back, careful not to tread on the spiral. You nod once. Just a small thing. You're not sure who it's for. Maybe yourself. The wind shifts again, brushing past you like a sigh. Behind you, the trees groan. And then, a sound. Faint, low, like breath drawn through a canyon. You spin toward the forest. Nothing. But it's not the nothing of emptiness. It's the nothing of something that's just left. The mammoths haven't moved. But now you can feel them listening too. Not with ears, with bones. With presence. You wonder if the spirit of the buried one just walked a final circle. Or maybe it was something older, a visitor, a keeper. The snow thickens. The world shrinks. The grave vanishes under soft flakes once more. You return to your place near the ring. The mammoths shift slightly. One lays its trunk along the back of another. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the herd exhales. A breath shared. A memory kept. The night continues. The stillness deepens, thick as snowfall on untouched ice. There's a weight to the silence now, not oppressive, more like a heavy blanket draped across a wide bed. You feel it in your shoulders, in the rhythm of your breath, in the way your thoughts start slowing down, matching the pace of the herd. One by one, the mammoths settle into the posture of sleep. They do not lie down. You've seen pictures, read studies. Mammoths, like modern elephants, slept mostly standing. Maybe 2 hours a night in total. Short spells, upright, and always alert. When they did lie down, it was rare and vulnerable. Tonight they remain vertical, but you can see the change in them. The way their shoulders droop, the way their eyes slip half-closed lids heavy with the ancient math of exhaustion. One of them leans slightly into a neighbor and the gesture is returned with a soft sway, like tectonic plates finding harmony. You crouch beside the spiral's edge again and watch, unsure what counts as sacred anymore. Because this feels like a prayer, a giant breathing lullaby offered to the stars. The matriarch closes her eyes fully now. Her ears twitch once, then still. Her breath is slow, audible, rhythmic, a natural metronome guiding the others into stillness. You feel your own eyelids get heavier. There's something comforting about their rest. It feels earned. As if the walk, the spiral, the formation, every ritual was designed not just for memory or protection, but to earn sleep, to justify it, to deserve rest after a day of survival. You envy that, humans. You scroll your phone, eat a handful of cereal at 2 a.m., and collapse into bed like someone's dropped you from a rooftop. Mammoths prepare for sleep. They carve the ground with purpose. They gather close. They orient to the world. Then, and only then, do they allow stillness. Odd fact. Elephants in the wild sleep less than nearly any other mammal. Some researchers believe it's due to constant movement predation risk and an internal vigilance that can't be turned off. Yet they thrive. Makes your 8 hours seem a little overindulgent, doesn't it? You lean back onto your hands and stare at the nearest mammoth. Its breath fogs gently in the cold air. It sways ever so slightly on its massive legs left to right, then back. It's not a movement of wakefulness, it's balance. Like a branch swaying under snow but never cracking. They're not unconscious, not fully, but they're dreaming. You can tell. The calf makes a sound again, softer this time. A hiccup in the quiet. It shifts, snuggling closer to its mother's flank, curling its trunk against her shoulder. You smile. There's a tenderness in the gesture that startles you. It's familiar, human, but not. You wonder what mammoths dream about. Do they remember migrations? The taste of river sedge. The weight of a snowfall so sudden it turned the whole world into a white fog. Or do they dream of each other, of the ones who walk beside them and no longer do? Here's a detail. The textbooks usually skip REM sleep in elephants. When it happens, often occurs when they lie down, not when they stand. But even upright, their brains rest in cycles, drifting in and out of partial awareness. So maybe they dream differently. Maybe their dreams spiral like their paths. Layered, asymmetrical, repeating but never identical. You lie back in the snow just outside the ring and look up at the stars. They don't twinkle here, they glare. The cold sneaks under your coat, but it's not unpleasant. Just present, just real. You think about how many nights these mammoths have circled trees, how many generations have carved the same paths. You wonder if they recognize the grooves beneath the snow, not just visually, but through some bone-deep knowledge, like how salmon know the scent of the river that made them. Historians still debate whether this kind of behavior was inherited genetically or socially. Was it instinct etched into nerve and muscle, or was it mimicry, young mammoths watching old ones and copying their sacred dance? You suspect the answer is yes to both. The snowflakes grow smaller, finer, like ash from a distant fire. They coat your sleeves, your hat. You don't brush them off. Your eyes drift shut just for a moment, and in that moment the night thickens again. You hear the subtle sounds of sleep all around you. The exhale of trunks, the whisper of fur brushing fur, the soft grind of massive molars chewing ghost food in dreams. And one other sound softer still, the creak of the tree in the center of the spiral. It moves like a tired knee, like something remembering how to stand. You open your eyes again, but nothing has changed. The mammoths sleep, the trees lean, the grave is quiet. But the world feels heavier now. Not dangerous, just full. You sit up slowly. One of the younger mammoths opens an eye, checks you, then closes it again. Approved. You're part of the ring tonight. Not quite inside it, but close enough. And that's when you feel it. A warmth, not heat, not comfort. A warmth of connection, of awareness. As if the act of sleeping upright together is not just for rest, but for belonging. A way to say, we do this together. We survive this together. We dream standing so we can wake ready to run. You rub your hands together. They've gone a bit numb, but you don't want to move. Because now the spiral isn't just a path. It's a cradle, not made of wood or blankets or fire, but of memory, and breath, and sheer impossible size. The herd sleeps, and somehow so does the world. The dreams begin subtly. You don't hear them, not like dialogue or song. You feel them seeping into the air like humidity warping the cold around you with something warmer, older, heavier. The herd doesn't move, but somehow the ground does, just slightly. A tension beneath the snow, like something shifting in its sleep beneath your feet. It's not an earthquake. You felt those. They're fast, sharp, alarming. This is slower, rhythmic, dreams that stir the snow. You lie back again and close your eyes, not to sleep, but to listen. And you do. To the pulse of the earth, matched beat for beat by the breath of a dozen mammoths. Their torsos rise and fall like slow waves. Their trunks twitch ever so slightly. Their ears flutter like sails, catching dreams instead of wind. You wonder what it's like to dream upright with your spine stacked like columns of ice. What kind of images survive in a creature that walks in spirals every night and remembers the footsteps of the dead? And then a strange sensation hits you. The air around the herd is warmer than it should be. Not warm like a fire, not comfortable, but warmer than the open plain. The snow in the center of the spiral hasn't fallen as thick. The flakes veer gently outward, pulled by some current you can't see. It's like the herd is generating stillness and heat. You sit up and look closer. Around the belly of one of the younger males, a thin wisp of steam rises, body heat bleeding into the cold air. He's not alone. Every mammoth exhales warmth like lanterns left burning under heavy coats. Together, they've created a thermal circle. Not enough to melt the snow completely, but enough to soften it. Odd fact, there are Arctic fish that can raise their internal temperatures for short periods to hunt better. They create warmth in places that shouldn't have any. Mammoths, insulated as they were, may have done the same in a different way, not individually, but together. Maybe this warmth was part of the ritual. Maybe it's what let them dream. You scan the snow beneath them and realize something eerie. The patterns in the frost have changed. The swirls from their walking are still visible, but now there are new impressions. Lighter, chaotic, as if their feet, still rooted in place, have been shifting just enough to draw on the earth. Sleep doodles. It's not hallucination. Look closer and you see it, the subtle groove of a toe dragging. The shallow twist of a foot pivoting. Not random, patterned. They're moving in their sleep, not walking, not restlessly twitching, rehearsing. You rise and step gently toward the outermost edge of the spiral, just far enough to get a better view of the nearest mammoth. His eyes are closed, but his legs shift slightly, front right then back left, a slow, sleepy circle. He's dreaming of walking. You watch three others, all the same, swaying, turning just an inch at a time. Ghost dancing. This isn't restlessness. This is ritual in REM. Historians still debate whether non-human animals experience dream content the way we do. Sure, dogs bark in their sleep and elephants twitch. But is it memory or just reflex? Some believe mammals like elephants replay events in dreams, migrations, challenges, even social interactions. Others think the brain simply reboots, clears the RAM. But tonight, you're watching something else entirely. They aren't just remembering, they're training. Each step etched to the earth is being walked again in their sleep. Each spiral repeated, refined. It's as if they can't stop, or won't. The spiral is the body. The spiral is the mind. And here's your strange fact of the hour. Some indigenous Arctic cultures believe that walking in circles before sleep helped trap evil spirits in loops, preventing them from invading dreams. A simple ritual, a small loop, just enough to make the night safe. Maybe the mammoths invented it first. You glance at the center of the spiral again. The grave has nearly vanished under snow, but something about it feels brighter now. Not in light, but presence. The dreams seem to flow outward from that spot, not as fear, but as reminder. You realize what the spiraling movement in sleep really is. It's a way of staying together even while unconscious. In motion, even in dreams, they remain connected. If one stirs too much, others do too. If one shifts weight, another adjusts. No gaps, no openings. The herd is a net of breath and bone and instinct woven tight in the dark. You close your eyes again, listening for any discord. There is none. Just breath, just snow, just the crunch of time turning softly under giant feet. You start to imagine what this place would look like 1,000 years from now. When the snow is gone, when the spirals melt and flatten into dirt, when the bones bleach and collapse. Will the ground still remember? Will some future archaeologist unearth a perfect spiral etched into permafrost and wonder why? Why the trees? Why the circles? Will they think of you, of tonight? Maybe they'll say, this was a sacred place. And they'd be right. The mammoths move again. A synchronized shuffle, like a heartbeat resetting. And for the first time, you realize you're swaying too. Just a little. Knees slightly bent. Shoulders soft, as if your body by proximity alone has been looped into the rhythm. The dreams have reached you, and though you are not sleeping, not really, you feel rested, as if the herd has lent you something. A piece of their silence. You whisper aloud half a joke, thanks. The matriarch's ear twitches, just once. The snow settles differently here. You notice it now that you've walked among spirals and drifted on the warm silence of mammoth breath. Out on the steppe, snow lands however it pleases, rushed, scattered, flung sideways by the wind. But within the rings it's slower, more respectful. It drapes it, curves, it remembers. You've begun to recognize something strange about the ground. It isn't flat, at least not entirely. There are layers, ridges, ancient scalloped grooves barely covered by snow. As you walk farther out from the herd, you stumble across them more and more. Spirals everywhere. Some overlap, some stretch. Some are full loops, others partial arcs that vanish into drifted hollows. One is wide enough to have held an entire herd, maybe it did. You kneel by another and brush the snow back with a mittened hand. Beneath it, the soil is dark, packed, compressed. You're kneeling in a fossil without stone. And that's the thing, not all fossils are bones. Some are footprints. Some are nests. Some are behaviors stamped into the ground so many times they become topography. Right now, you're in one of those places. A behavior fossil. The land itself is an archive of movement spirals etched by bodies that never stopped circling. Not just last night, not just this season, for centuries. Odd fact break. In places like Rankle Island, archaeologists have found mammoth fossils arranged in unexpected ways, some with bones stacked vertically, some forming odd circles. Natural collapse. Human involvement. Still unknown. But in frozen places like this, stories get trapped in position like thoughts fossilized mid-sentence. You stand and walk farther from the herd, stepping carefully between ancient spirals. It's like navigating a graveyard where the headstones are invisible unless you know where to look. And you do now. You pass one spiral that has no tree in its center, just a shallow dip where snow has settled deeper than the rest. You kneel again, brush gently. There, just beneath the crust, a different texture, softer, decayed. Wood. You dig with your hands, breath fogging the air. More bark. A snapped limb. A stump once upright now, long collapsed and half-eaten by frost and time. This was a tree, a long time ago. You sit back and exhale, and the cold claims the sound like a secret. The mammoths didn't spiral randomly. On Snee, they returned. Again and again, even when the tree had died. Even when there was nothing left to circle. That's the moment it clicks. These weren't just sleeping patterns. They were maps. No more than maps. Memorials. Markers of memory. Return points. Imagine this, you're a mammoth calf. You're led to a tree. You spiral it with your herd. You rest near it. You're told without words that this place matters. That this place is safe, or sacred, or simply remembered. The next year, you come back. And the next. Even when the tree dies, the spiral remains. You walk it anyway. That's what you're standing in now, a fossilized habit. Historians still debate whether these fossil spirals were formed all at once, maybe in panic as the herd circled in confusion during a storm, or over time, slow repetition layering movement into memory. But standing here knee-deep in what looks like the 300-year-old echo of a bedtime routine, you'd argue for repetition. No panic here, just presence. And here's something worth knowing. Fossilized footprints. Trace fossils can tell scientists more about behavior than skeletons ever could. You can read herd structure, body size, even mood sometimes in the spacing of steps. But spirals tell you about return. They tell you what mattered. You shuffle back toward the herd and the ground beneath you is suddenly different. Lumpy, uneven, a basin of compressed snow dips beneath your boots. Another spiral. This one is deeper. The snow within it is powdery, undisturbed. You pause. Something was here recently. You look toward the herd. None are missing. And yet this spiral is fresh. Not walked hours ago. Walked minutes ago. You kneel. Press your glove into the track. The edges are sharp. Too sharp. You whisper aloud. Who? No answer. Of course not. Just the silence of the snow of breath of memory. And yet, you wonder, could mammoths walk spirals even after death? Could a dream walker return here in some other form, breath wind, weightless repetition? Could the herd still feel their presence? Remember the footfall even when the feet are gone. You wouldn't be the first to think so. Many indigenous cultures speak of animals returning in loops, ghost steps, spirit trails, circular echoes of those who've passed. Not to haunt, but to finish something. A final spiral. You rise slowly and walk the edge of this newest circle, careful not to step inside. One full loop. Two. And then you pause, heart racing just slightly. At the center lies nothing, but also something. Not a tree, not a bone, just snow. But it holds shape somehow, like a blanket pulled gently over something sleeping. You back away. You've walked enough tonight. The sky has started to pale. The first suggestion of morning, faint and cold, as a forgotten whisper glows on the edge of the world. The stars blink out, one by one, exhausted by their own watchfulness. You return to the herd. One by one, the mammoths begin to stir. Not fully, not yet, but the shift is there. The reset. One flexes its toes, pulling up a mound of snow. Another huffs a low, guttural exhale, less breath, more reminder I'm still here. The matriarch opens her eye, looks at you, just once, then closes it again. Trust re-extended. The snow has covered many of the spirals now, but you know where they are. You feel them under your feet, beneath your own footprints. You wonder if you came back tomorrow, would your own trail still be there? Would you be part of this fossil? Not yet, but maybe one day. For now, you're just a guest, and you've walked gently. The snow begins to whisper again, not just in the air, but underfoot. Tiny shifts, delicate cracks in the frozen crust. 100 soft voices saying, the night is nearly done. But the question burns quietly in your chest, warm and persistent. Why spirals? Why this pattern repeated over generations, over lifetimes, around trees that fall, around absences that stay? The easy answer is defense. The practical answer, the spiral, is watchful. It allows a mammoth to face inward, place the vulnerable calves at the core, and detect any threat from the periphery. But why a spiral and not a cluster? A huddle, a straight line. What invisible instinct bent the path into a curve? You stop at the edge of a particularly wide ring, one nearly erased by the night snow, but still felt barely in the skin of the ground. You pace it slowly, tracing the shape with your feet. It's imperfect, slightly elliptical, like it was drawn with muscle memory, not geometry. And this isn't the only one. There are hundreds out here if you knew how to see them. Faint loops in the tundra. You think of ancient Nazca lines, massive geoglyphs etched into the desert, visible only from the sky. But these are not for the sky. These are for the earth itself. Odd fact, brake whales sleeping at sea sometimes drift in slow circular motions near the surface. Scientists think it's to regulate pressure and remain aware of their surroundings. Spirals might be a compromise between stillness and vigilance, a natural geometry of rest with one eye open. Still, the spiral persists as something more than just tactical. Historians still debate whether the mammoth spiral was truly defensive or something deeper. The academic term you might hear is ritualized movement patterns. But even that is a placeholder for not knowing, not fully. So let's get stranger. Magnetoreception. The ability to detect the Earth's magnetic field is present in many animals. Birds use it to migrate. Sea turtles use it to return to their birth beaches. Some insects align their bodies to magnetic lines even when resting. And then there's the elephant. Studies in recent years suggest modern elephants might have a magnetic sense, that they orient themselves along cardinal directions when sleeping or dying. Some carcasses are found facing consistently east or northwest, not random, not coincidental. So imagine the mammoth, ancient and heavier than memory, turning in wide arcs every night, not because it feels safer, but because something inside it demands alignment. The spiral isn't just a bed, it's a compass, and the tree at the center, a fixed point, a magnetic partner, a grounding rod in a world that always moves. You crouch again and press your hand into the snow. It's not warm, but it feels like it should be. There's a presence here, not spiritual necessarily, but gravitational, as if this tree, this spot, this loop has kept pulling mammoths back for reasons they couldn't explain even to themselves. You think about how humans gravitate to familiar places, the same bed, the same route, to work, the same seat at the dinner table. We build rituals out of geography. We anchor memory in architecture. The mammoths did the same without steel or stone. They used trees and footprints and spirals. You walk toward one of the trees near the edge of the group. It's different, shorter, stunted. Not old enough to have seen the mammoth's ancestors, but old enough to have been circled for decades. The bark is deeply worn in one band, roughly at the height of a brushing trunk. You run your hand across the smooth patch. It's polished, not from weather, from intention. Here's a detail that doesn't make it into textbooks. In some ancient burial sites, archaeologists have found stones polished smooth from years of human hands laying the same offerings in the same spot. Not because someone told them to, but because it felt right. That's what this is. This tree has been marked. Not chewed, not stripped, just touched in a spiral. The baby mammoth wanders toward it now. Tentative. Curious. You freeze. Its tiny trunk reaches forward, brushes the tree just once, and pulls back. Not chewing, not scratching, just checking. The calf begins to turn slow and clumsy around the trunk. It's a half spiral at best, a wobble. But it finishes the circle. And when it stops, it looks toward the matriarch. She doesn't move, but her stillness deepens. Approval. You look at the calf, then at the tree. That's how it starts. Each generation learning the loop, repeating it, reinforcing it, until the path isn't just behavioral, it's engraved in culture. Elephants today teach each other which routes are safe, which rivers to avoid, which forests once held fire. Knowledge without books, without maps. Just pass trunk to trunk, foot to foot. The spiral then may not be instinct at all. It may be language. You stand there stunned by the simplicity of it. that you've been walking through communication all night and didn't realize. And now it's almost morning. The sky turns silver. The snow reflects it. You hear one mammoth yawn, not with sound but with stretch. A long, luxurious shift of weight from side to side. Others stir. The spiral is loosening. You feel the herd preparing to move. And that's the thing, the spiral is not just how they end the day. It's how they prepare to leave it. The circle breaks slowly, but not completely. The pattern will return tomorrow. Different tree, different angle, same shape. Always the spiral, always the return. You wake up to movement. Not abrupt, not loud. Just a slow, deliberate shuffle in the snow. The kind that doesn't care if you notice it's going to happen either way. The mammoths are breaking the spiral, not all at once. There's no signal, no dramatic trumpet. It's like the tide turning at the edge of consciousness. The matriarch moves first, shifting her weight, testing the morning, with one heavy step, then another. Behind her, the others respond like puppets with cut strings, slow and loose, finding momentum again. The calf is still pressed against its mother's side. It resists the moment a little longer, like a kid faking sleep on a school day. But eventually it lumbers forward, dragging one foot slightly. Even in giant creatures, reluctance is universal. You stretch your arms and sit up, brushing snow off your chest. Your legs are stiff, but your mind feels unusually rested, as if some prehistoric lullaby has rocked you gently all night. You rise and follow at a respectful distance as the herd begins to realign, no longer in a circle, but a gentle line like music trailing off the last note. And then you see it. Another spiral, but not made by mammoths. It's smaller, cruder, built from stones, human-sized stones. You blink, step toward it. The snow has covered most of it, but the shape is unmistakable. A ring of rocks in a loose spiral, wrapping once, twice toward a central depression that may have once held a fire. Not ancient, but not new either. Someone built this. Someone who watched and copied. Odd fact, early human camps in northern Eurasia often included circular structures, rings of bones or stones used for tents, fires, even burial sites. They mirrored the shapes of the environment, the movements of prey, and perhaps the paths of mammoths. Humans mimic what they admire, or what they fear, or what they depend on. You kneel near the edge of the stone spiral and brush back the snow. There's soot in the center, charcoal flecks. Someone lived here, or at least stayed long enough to burn something. Cook something, maybe warm their hands against the same chill that crawls up your sleeves now. It's not hard to imagine a group of humans crouched here quiet, watching the same herd spiral around the trees. Maybe they thought it was magic, maybe they called it something they couldn't explain, or maybe, like you, they just watched and decided it was worth imitating. Historians still debate whether human hunting bands built circular camps to defend against predators or to mirror herd behavior. Some think the rings made it easier to trap firelight. Others believe it was a spiritual mimicry, a way of bringing mammoth presence into the heart of the human world. You look back at the herd. They're heading down slope now, slow but steady, the matriarch still leading. One by one, the spirals behind them melt into nothing more than flattened snow. But you remember where they were. That's the thing about spirals. They don't stay. Not forever, not visibly. But once you've seen them, you can't unsee them. Your eyes start to expect the curve. Your body too. You've walked enough now that even the idea of a straight line feels unnatural. You stand again and take one step inside the human spiral. Then another. Your boots crunch softly as you complete one slow loop. Not for ritual, not for safety, just to feel what they felt, to see what they saw. The view lines up perfectly with the tree the mammoths slept around last night. Of course it does. You wonder if those early humans stayed close by during the mammoth's spiral, watching, warming themselves, maybe humming something low under their breath to match the rhythm of heavy footsteps. And when the mammoths left, maybe they built their own circle. A tribute, a thank you, or maybe a wish, please come back. Humans didn't just hunt mammoths, they followed them. For warmth, for shelter, for food, for direction. Some ancient sites show repeated seasonal occupation evidence that humans return to the same locations again and again. And who else did that? The mammoths. The two species separated by millions of years of evolution shared one trait: they remembered where to return. You crouch at the center of the stone spiral and pick up a piece of charcoal. It crumbles slightly in your glove. The fire that made it is long gone, but not forgotten. You look up again. The mammoths are nearly out of sight now, just soft brown shapes against the bleached horizon. The calf pauses and turns, almost as if sensing you. Or maybe it's looking at the tree. At the grave, you wave. You don't know why. It just feels right. And then the calf turns and continues tiny footprints, swallowed one by one into those of the adults. You stay by the spiral a little longer, watching the wind begin to erase the path, wondering how many more will be buried here. Spiral upon spiral, memory upon memory, until someone else comes along and sees the curve and follows it. The herd is gone. Their footfalls no longer echo. The snow smooths itself over their departure like an old man brushing his hair lightly with care, pretending it was never mussed. And you're left alone with the tree, the spiral, the stones, and something invisible, a path only mammoths remember. You walk back toward the center tree, the one the matriarch circled so deliberately. The bark is glossy now, as if the snow has buffed it overnight. You trace the outermost ring they walked before sleeping, and your boots fit almost perfectly into the depression. Not because your stride matches, but because the curve wants to be walked. You look up. No visible trail marks the direction the herd took. No signs point the way. But you know where they went. Somehow. The same way they did. Not by sight, not by smell, by pull, something in the body that feels the land like fingers read brails. Here's a thought. What if the mammoths were following more than instinct? What if their path was a form of navigation memory? A mental landscape stitched together by countless loops, walked across generations. Science backs you up here. Modern elephants have excellent spatial memory. Matriarchs can remember locations of water holes they haven't visited in decades. Some have been known to lead herds to long-dried riverbeds with the ghost of moisture still trapped below. And so maybe mammoths, those shaggy archivists, remembered the same way. Not in steps, but in orbits, returning not just to where they once fed, but where they once slept, dreamed, died. And those returns carved deeper grooves in the brain. You take another step along the invisible line. The spiral opens, becomes path. But it never really stops being a circle. Even in motion, mammoth movement curves, like migration with a secret center. Odd fact. Caribou have been observed migrating in looped patterns rather than straight lines, especially in places with no landmarks. It confuses predators. It preserves group cohesion. And some believe it feels right. The spiral, it turns out, may be evolution's way of telling you where you belong. And humans, we do it too. You think about pilgrimage trails. Ancient paths walked again and again by people seeking peace, wisdom, or just return. Trails like the Camino de Santiago, which arc through entire countries only to end where they began, in a sense, spiraling the soul home. You wonder if early humans who followed mammoths also mimicked their loops, not consciously, just because it worked. A spiral isn't just a place to sleep, it's a place to recalibrate, to test your position in the world, to check the magnetic lines, the smells, the wind, to see who's missing, to remember where you've come from, and to decide whether to keep going. And so even in their migration, mammoths walked circles, sometimes tight like last night, sometimes wide dozens of miles across, invisible to us unless we watch them from the sky. But always circling something: memory, graves, trees, storms, stars. You stop on a small ridge overlooking the plain, and suddenly it makes sense. This land is stitched with invisible circles, like the ghosts of campfires, or stories told so many times they've worn grooves in the tongue. The snow doesn't hide them, it reveals them, just not to the eyes. to the body. You turn your shoulders slightly, and like a compass needle twitching, you feel it the pull. North-northeast, just a few degrees, where the herd went. And you realize something that makes your breath catch. They've done this before, not just this herd, not just last winter. Every winter, for hundreds of years, maybe longer. Circling, spiraling, returning. Not because they were lost, but because they knew exactly where they were. Here's a beautiful little mind-bender. Some paleontologists believe the movement patterns of extinct megafauna like mammoths are still shaping modern ecosystems. That trails walked thousands of years ago have become depressions in the soil that influence how water flows, where plants grow, how animals move. Behavior as infrastructure. You walk a few more paces, then stop. At your feet, a stone. Round. Smooth. Too perfect to be chance. You pick it up. Under it, another spiral, not made by mammoth or man. A fossil shell, an ammonite. Hundreds of millions of years old. You laugh softly because, of course, spirals beneath spirals. The mammoths weren't inventing anything. They were participating. You look out across the plain. Nothing moves, but you swear you hear it. The memory of footsteps. The hush of trunks brushing snow. The long, low breath of something ancient. You whisper, "I see it." Not to be poetic, but because something wants to be seen. And when you finally turn back towards your camp, toward your little human tent with its little human fire, you walk in a wide arc. Not a shortcut, a circle. Because some part of you now understands this is how you return. Night again. You didn't think you'd stay this long, but you have. One more dusk. One more layer of snow pressed into the land like silence into old books. You light a small fire, just enough to keep your fingers moving. Its crackle feels like an interruption in a world where everything prefers to move quietly in curves, not sparks. You sit with your knees tucked up, arms wrapped around them, watching the wind draw ripples across the surface of the snow. And you wonder, if the mammoths don't come back tonight, will you still feel them? And then you stop wondering because something changes. It's not loud, not even clear, but your body knows before your brain does. The way your shoulders tighten, the way your ears lean forward without moving, the way the hairs on your neck lift just a little. There's a presence again. But this time it's not wolves, not the herd, something older. You stand very slowly and scan the distance. Nothing. But the nothing feels different, like an inhale held at the wrong time. The trees, those tired, wind-warped sentinels, stand exactly as before, but they look braced, as if they too sense the shift. The fire flickers sideways, and then you hear it, a creak, not wood, not wind. Wait! But not mammoth, wait. This is heavier. Slower. The sound of something moving not just through space, but through time. You hold your breath. Out beyond the spirals, beyond the range of your light, you see it. No feel. It a silhouette that doesn't move exactly, but becomes something tall, something sloped. Not quite mammoth, and not quite not. Its shape is blurred not by distance, but by memory. Like a dream you can't hold steady, but it walks, slowly, deliberately, across one of the old spirals. The snow does not complain under its feet, and though it makes no sound, the silence around it responds. The fire dips. Odd fact. In Siberian folklore, spirits of the tundra are said to walk in circles, never quite visible, never quite gone. They are not hostile, but they do not like to be watched. They prefer to be sensed. You don't move. The figure pauses at a broken spiral. It doesn't look at you, not with eyes, but you feel its attention. Like an old radio frequency brushing across your teeth. It completes one slow turn around the tree stump, then two, then stops, at the center, and lies down, slowly, carefully. The snow lifts slightly like breath under a blanket, then nothing. No form, no imprint. Just snow again. But now the spiral is new. You walk to it barely feeling your own footsteps. The fire stays behind a soft glow, trying to remember how to be brave. You reach the spiral's edge. The snow here is untouched, but the shape is clear. A depression in space, not surface. The way a scent lingers. The way your childhood bedroom still exists in the dark corners of your mind. The mammoths did not come back tonight, but something else did. Something older than them. Older than trees. Older than fire. A watcher of watchers. A spiral walker. And here's where historians throw up their hands. Because this part, no fossils, no footnotes, no carbon dating. Just spirals where no mammoth ever walked. Circles that return each season, not drawn by tusk or trunk, but by something else. Something silent. Historians still debate whether these spiral forms were purely biological, cultural, or the residue of some ancient relationship between animal and land. Some dismiss the more poetic theories. Others insist that meaning doesn't fossilize, but it accumulates. Like snow. You sit beside the spiral. You don't cross it. You just sit. The wind slows, then halts altogether. The fire behind you pops once, then quiets. The sky is clear again. But the stars feel closer now. And for the first time, you understand what the mammoths were circling. Not trees. Not graves. Not safety. They were walking around absence. Not to fill it, but to give it form. And maybe if you give it enough form, it doesn't swallow you. It becomes part of you. Morning is a rumor that hasn't quite committed. The sky is bruised violet somewhere between night's last breath and dawn's first murmur. Your fire is now just a sullen ring of embers, barely red like embarrassed eyes, trying not to be noticed. But the spiral is still there, not just visible, present. As if it belongs more than you do. As if the ground has agreed to carry its memory a while longer. You rise slowly, not because you're tired, but because you're reluctant to shift the air. It's heavy in that sacred way, the kind of stillness that usually follows music or death. The snow has stopped falling, not in a dramatic storybook way, just quietly. It ran out maybe, or it's waiting. You walk a loose arc around the spiral, keeping a respectful distance. You don't need to step in it. You already did last night, if not with feet, then with memory. You remember the figure, or the idea of it. Or maybe you dreamed it. At this point, the line between dreaming and tracking is so blurred it might as well be a spiral too. You pass the oldest tree in the grove again. It hasn't moved, but something about it feels different, like it aged overnight. Or maybe now that you've seen enough circles, you finally understand what it's been holding all this time. The tree is a spoke, a pin, a silent witness around which generations of bodies turned. Not for comfort, not for warmth, for orientation. Odd fact. Some deep-sea creatures like certain jellyfish navigate complete darkness by sensing Earth's gravitational orientation even in water thousands of feet deep. No light, no land, but they still know which way is down. The mammoths were doing the same thing, but with land, with time. They weren't spiraling for fun. They were anchoring, so they wouldn't drift too far from themselves. You sit again just outside the old spiral where the figure appeared. The snow here has stopped settling. It's like even the weather knows this spot has earned its shape. You imagine being a young mammoth, small, unsteady, watching the older ones walk their loop. You don't know why you follow, but your legs take you anyway. You walk because they do, because they did. And someday another calf will follow you. That's how memory becomes instinct. And instinct becomes culture. And culture becomes sacred. You think of the first humans to witness it, the first of your kind to stumble upon a ring of sleeping mammoths, swaying upright in the snow. They must have thought it divine or terrifying or both. Did they draw it on cave walls? Did they try to mimic it, not to copy but to belong? You remember the stone spiral you found yesterday? It was crude, uneven, but it tried. It was enough. Historians still debate whether spiral patterns in prehistoric human art, on bone, on rock, on skin, originated independently or were inspired by natural observation. The lines between symbolism and biology blur easily. Spirals show up in everything: shells, storms, galaxies, brain folds. But here, among mammoths, they're not just patterns. They're positions. Each circle says, "We are here. We were here. We will be here again." You lean back against a stump and close your eyes. No dreams come this time. But a feeling settles over you, something between gratitude and grief. Like watching someone you love disappear into the fog, but knowing they'll walk the same road tomorrow. You open your eyes. Light finally begins to crawl over the edge of the sky. Pale blue. No fanfare. The spiral still holds. But you know it won't for long. The next snow will erase it. Or the wind. Or time. But not entirely. Not really. Because you've walked it. Because it's in you now. And maybe that's what the mammoths were doing every night. Not just surviving, but recording. Not in words, but in weight. The wind has shifted. Not just in direction, but in tone. It no longer whispers sideways through the trees like a cautious guest. It moves upward now, vertical, like breath rising after a long-held pause. The night is gone. The spiral is fading. And the cold no longer bites, it just exists. You stand for the last time, brushing the snow from your back, your knees, the folds of your coat. The fire is long dead. A shallow bowl of ash, another circle, another quiet end. You look across the field where the mammoths slept. Their spirals are already softening. Some vanish entirely under wind-blown powder. Others leave faint hollows like the pressed-down furrows left by sleeping bodies in long grass. You walk a slow arc around what was once the herd's central ring. It feels different this morning. Less sacred, maybe. Or more so, the magic didn't leave it settled, as if the absence is part of the ritual. There's no trace of the calf now, no small, clumsy prints trailing behind the wide, steady strides of its mother. No lingering warmth in the snow, but you remember it, and so it stays. You move towards the tree one last time. The bark is no longer wet with breath or frost. It's just bark again. But as you run your glove across it, you feel something invisible press against your skin. A sense of repetition, like this moment has happened before. Like it will happen again. The tree doesn't speak. It simply remains. Odd fact. Ancient sequoias and bristlecone pines carry within their rings the memory of drought, fire, and flood. Each ring is a sentence. Each scar an edit. Trees are archivists of pressure, and mammoths were the editors. They didn't write with ink. They wrote with steps. You step back away from the tree and find yourself in the center of an unfinished spiral. Maybe from last night, maybe from long ago. You walk one half turn, then another, then pause. Not because you need to, but because it feels like the right place to stop. You turn slowly, taking in the field once more. A question rises in you, uninvited. What was the last spiral ever walked? Somewhere thousands of years ago, a final mammoth walked a final circle. Alone, maybe. Or with a calf too small to remember. Maybe the tree had already fallen. Maybe the snow was too thin. Maybe there was no one left to see it. But they walked it anyway. Because that's what the body does when it doesn't know what else to do. It circles. To say I was here. To say this mattered. To say don't forget. Historians still debate which mammoth population was truly the last. Some argue it was the Wrangel Island dwarfs clinging to survival on a shrinking island. Others point to unconfirmed findings in remote Siberia, suggesting that a handful of holdouts lingered far longer than we thought. But no matter which was last, one of them walked a final spiral. Not a migration, not a panic, just a simple circle, like a record ending its song. And now here you are. The sun has finally broken over the ridge, but it doesn't shine. It glows, pale and diffuse, a slow exhale across the land. You stand perfectly still as the light rolls over the trees, the bones, the spirals. The grave is gone now, beneath a clean sheet of new snow. But you know where it is. The spiral you stood beside last night, where something older than time lay down in silence, has vanished too. But you remember it, and that is enough. You begin walking back toward your camp, not in a straight line, in a curve, a soft arc that veers gently left, a loop that brings you back past the tree, past the human spiral, past the fire. And only then does your path begin to unwind into something like departure. Your footprints trail behind you not as symbols but as echoes, And as the snow begins to fall, again light and careless, it starts to erase them. One by one by one. Tonight you followed the shadows of mammoths across frozen ground into a story written not in words but in spirals. Each section of this journey revealed another layer of the mammoth's strange, deliberate behavior, circling trees before sleep, tracing ancient paths into snow with their bodies and breath. You witnessed the rituals of memory carved into the land circles, walked around trees, around graves, around absences, behaviors passed from generation to generation like invisible maps. You watched them sleep upright, swaying their dreams, gently stirring the snow beneath them. You listened to wolves hover beyond the ring, waiting but never entering. You uncovered fossil spirals, both mammoth and human. You followed not just herds, but the ghost of repetition, realizing these spirals were more than safety, they were remembrance, a way to align with the land, to orient towards survival. In the end, it wasn't just about mammoths. It was about what remains when the body is gone. What patterns stay behind? What spirals endure? You walked among vanished giants and heard the soft exhale of the last spiral ever walked. And as morning broke and you turned to leave, you found yourself doing what the mammoths once did, not out of instinct but out of understanding. You didn't walk away, you curved.